welcome. Are you ready to start writing? Let's get right to it.
A writer outlines a story, thinking about plot and character. We have to choose words that are interesting to describe the characters and move the plot along. In this video, we will focus on word choices and how to stimulate vocabulary to write in a way that is original and engaging. As the storyteller begins to speak, the audience listens. Sometimes they might interrupt, grow bored, or cut off the sentences. We have gotten used to saying, long story short, and writing brief messages like texts. Maybe we don't listen as well as we should. If you think of Grandma sitting on the porch with a wide range of stories from her youth, or sitting around a campfire, do we listen attentively or zone out? As you walk with a friend down the road, are you listening to her story or planning what to make for dinner? Our society seems to have become abbreviated. We have so many articles or videos about 5 tips to do something, or 6 ways to success, or 4 hints around the house. We shorten words and phrases and summarize information. And this can all be useful, but at the same time, we are depriving our brains of more detailed and thorough reading exercise. We keep doing short sprints and have no energy or stamina for a marathon. We live in an age that is very focused on physical fitness. The gym has become a central part of people's lives, especially for those who don't have access to outdoor space or suffer from bad weather. Initially, a gym workout might be quite basic, lifting small weights and doing manageable training. But eventually, you hope to move on to heavier equipment and more strenuous cardio. It should be the same for our reading material. In grade 1, we have basic elements, sentences and pictures, and we build from there to readers and early chapter books. Sometimes this growth stops at school level. As writers, we need to continue reading a variety of texts and have patience with longer novels. Our steps to building better vocabulary can be gradual as we focus on personal development. Sometimes reading narrows to include only a very small frame of reference, perhaps work jargon. Increase your general knowledge. Take an interest in different cultures and countries. Learn about plants, foods, clothing of different regions or time periods. Add new words to your personal dictionary by looking up anything you don't understand. Pick up a book. Try to challenge yourself with something more complex. Set aside a few minutes each day, perhaps 30 minutes at least, when you can read without interruption. Many people will say they are too busy and don't have time. But you could slot this in early or before bed, even to read one paragraph each day. Think about what the writer has said and the words he has chosen. Write down any questions that come to mind and share your thoughts with a friend, maybe discussing the book with a book club or anyone who's interested in hearing about new concepts. Mr. Rogers, the wonderful children's television host, said, "We live in a very noisy world. It's hard for adults to concentrate, let alone children. Do we fear silence and have to always turn on a television, music, or laptop in the background? Try to find a quiet place. It's important to develop focus and give yourself room to breathe and think. There's a reason why libraries are quiet spaces where people can't just play random music. The quiet is good for your thinking." Sometimes, as people get older, our interests narrow. We hear people say, I'm not interested in history, it's got nothing to do with my work. Or, I'm not a gamer or a poet, etc. Writers need to broaden horizons, to have an active interest and curiosity in many things. You might see clips of guys who are very enthusiastic about collecting rocks and looking for agates or crystals. It might not be your thing, but it could be the next hobby of your character in your book. You might need to know something about security if a character is trying to break into someone's house. So, we have to learn new vocabulary. Don't limit yourself to one genre only. Experiment and try your hand at writing different genres. If you always write fantasy romance, try putting your princess into a sci fi world on a different planet. Each genre has its own vocabulary, perspectives, and settings, and it can be very interesting to put yourself into a different world and try it out. Practice using different words and phrases and try writing these different descriptions. You never know, you may really enjoy a different genre, but at least you can have fun and it will stimulate your brain to new creative heights. We are going to look at a few different examples from classic literature. Try to grab hold of these books. Most are available online and you can dip into them. Don't be afraid to try out old books. You might not read the whole story, but sample a bite here and there. This is an extract from Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, and the character Catherine is speaking. The story is a romance of an impossible love between the two main characters, Catherine and Heathcliff. "This is nothing," cried she. "I was only going to say that heaven did not seem to be my home, and I broke my heart with weeping to come back to earth, and the angels were so angry that they flung me out into the middle of the heath on top of Wuthering Heights, where I woke sobbing for joy. That will do to explain my secret. As well as the other, I've no more business to marry Edgar Linton than I have to be in heaven, and if the wicked man in there had not brought Heathcliff so low, I shouldn't have thought of it. It would degrade me to marry Heathcliff now, so he shall never know how I love him, and that, not because he's handsome, Nelly, but because he's more myself than I am. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same, and Linton's is as different as a moonbeam from lightning, or frost from fire." True Grit by Charles Portis is not a long book, and it's really a worthwhile read. It's told from the first-person narrative of a young girl, Mattie. People do not give it credence that a 14-year-old girl could leave home and go off in the winter time to avenge her father's blood, but it did not seem so strange then, although I will say it did not happen every day. I was just 14 years of age when a coward going by the name of Tom Cheney shot my father down in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and robbed him of his life and his horse and $150 in cash money, plus 2 California gold pieces that he carried in his trouser band. John Wyndham wrote classic science fiction, and his books are fascinating. The Day of the Triffids is also narrated from a first-person point of view and brings the reader into close contact with every emotion and feeling of the protagonist. A nasty, empty feeling began to crawl up inside me. It was the same sensation I used to have, sometimes as a child, when I got to fancying that horrors were lurking in the shadowy corners of the bedroom, when I daren't put a foot out for fear that something should reach out from under the bed and grab my ankle, daren't even reach for the switch, lest the movement should cause something to leap at me. I had to fight down the feeling, just as I had to when I was a kid in the dark, and it was no easier. It's surprising how much you don't grow out of when it comes to the test. The elemental fears were still marching along with me, waiting their chance, and pretty nearly getting it, just because my eyes were bandaged and the traffic had stopped. Fantasy and fairy tale are close relatives with similar elements of magic and mythical creatures. Prince Caspian forms part of the Chronicles of Narnia, where a young man must trust his mentor if he is to survive. Your Highness speaks as you have been taught, said the doctor, but it is all lies. There are no ghosts there. That is a story invented by the Telmarines. Your kings are in deadly fear of the sea because they can never quite forget that in all the stories, Aslan comes from over the sea. They don't want to go near it, and they don't want anyone else to go near it, so they have let great woods grow up to cut their people off from the coast. But because they have quarrelled with the trees, they are afraid of the woods, and because they are afraid of the woods, they imagine that they are full of ghosts. And the kings and great men, hating both the sea and the wood, partly believe these stories and partly encourage them. They feel safer if no one in Narnia dares to go down to the coast and look out to sea towards Aslan's land and the morning and the eastern end of the world. With the advent of Pirates of the Caribbean and many movies of Treasure Island, readers and viewers became very aware of nautical language or pirate slang. There are many action scenes in the story, and sometimes writers struggle to describe combat or fight scenes. Before he could recover, I was safe out of the corner where he had me trapped, with all the deck to dodge about. Just forward of the mainmast, I stopped, drew a pistol from my pocket, took a cool aim, though he had already turned and was once more coming directly after me, and drew the trigger. The hammer fell, but there followed neither flash nor sound. The priming was useless with sea-water. I cursed myself for my neglect. Why had not I, long before, reprimed and reloaded my only weapons? Then I should not have been as now, a mere fleeing sheep before this butcher. Your task for today is to think of the classic boy meets girl scenario, but you need to write this in 5 different genres. The young man is awkward, perhaps shy at first, and needs to help a feisty girl with an important task. It could mean the difference between life and death. Firstly, they are in the Wild West, then on Mars as pioneers. Then try to reimagine this couple in a medieval castle. A modern classroom is completely different, and finally, a deserted, possibly piratical island. You could write 1 paragraph or see where the story takes you. Enjoy your writing. If you would like more writing tips and advice, you can follow my Substack blog, or you can find me on Patreon for conversation, dialogue, and English language. And then look on Facebook and Instagram for updates. Take a look at my books on Amazon. They are available as ebooks or paperback. Thank you.